what's going on here. All right. Welcome back to the Breaking Ice podcast. My name is Josh Ferguson, and I'm sitting here with Sara-Jayne from the NTFL. Yeah?
Yes.
All right. Welcome. How you doing?
Good. Thank you.
Well, what brings you here, let's start. What brings you to Northern Wales? Just a quick update, and then we'll kind of dive into your past a little bit and talk about your career and whatnot, and then we'll come back to this topic.
Sure. Primarily, I am in Norman Wells right now to help bring attention to the home heating fuel crisis and the fact that the town will collapse without some serious intervention from the territorial and federal governments.
Yeah, it's pretty serious. And when did you become aware of this issue? Was it like right away, or?
Basically right away.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate that I've lived in the North long enough that I've got connections in almost every community, and this was brought to the NTFL attention immediately.
And what are your what are your thoughts on it like right now?
The situation is incredibly dire, especially considering we're also looking down the barrel of a 25% power increase as well. The territorial government needs to step up. We can't let them crush another community like they crushed Enterprise after it burned down.
You know, I've talked to a lot of people about this topic, and I've heard many different opinions. And one of the opinions out there is, Northern Wales has historically been one of the wealthiest communities in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And they had talked about that being a reason why asking for funding like this, it was like kind of embarrassing. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
I think historically that was true years and years ago. Absolutely. It's never easy for anybody to ask for help. It's not easy for a community to say, we're desperate. And I think that is where we are at right now. I think we need to not look to the past, but look future, look forward. Looking forward, it's not we're not in a boom here anymore. We're definitely falling into a bit more of a bust. And we can't expect a community the size of Norman Wells to eat the cost that they're eating right now. No one should have to choose between being able to put food on their table or keep their heat on. Yeah,
that was, I was in my conversation, I was kind of like, okay, like I get it, but also like, it doesn't feel like it applies. Like if you're a family who's looking at $5,000 a month to heat your home and you literally can't afford groceries, no matter what how the place was doing in the 80s or 90s has nothing to do with the way it's going today.
That's it, exactly. I mean, you could look at literally any community and say, oh, well, they used to be doing amazing.
And you could even go with a devil's advocate perspective and say like, hey, like even now, like, an annual salary in Northern Wales is like far above the national index. But
sure, but the cost of living in the North is far above national pricing.
I like every time I interact with someone who doesn't live here and they ask about utilities, they are floored.
Yes.
They're absolutely floored.
Yeah.
And for anyone who's watching who doesn't have a sense of exactly what that's like, heating in the winter can be with a 1,000-liter tank. It's typically at $2. It's about $2,000 to heat up a month.
Yeah.
Right. If you're paying rent on top of that, that's probably another $2,000.
Yeah.
If you're paying for food, that's at least another $1,400 a month.
Easily.
And then if you're paying for power in the winter, that's max $600-700 a month, min $300.
Yep.
In the winter. This is all winter numbers.
Yep.
And then water, it's about $100 to $200 depending on how big your household is. And what else am I missing here? Internet,
your cell phone, just having kids. Having kids is its own expense by itself.
For sure. So if I might put the totals up on the screen here. We'll see if I do that. But the point being is when you take that number or a mortgage as opposed to rent as well, right? But if you take that number and then you add $3, you change it from $2 to $3.60, which it, is helpful. I just want to clarify this reduction here because originally the cost, if all the costs of flying the fuel in were added onto the number, it would be like $5.16 or like $5.20 or something like that. However, there were headlines on cabin radio, so helpful to say that Imperial slashed fuel prices. You could spin it that way, but that it's not specifically what's happening. Imperial agreed to it's like buy now, pay later, to spread the cost of fuel out over twice as long.
An indeterminate period of time.
Yes.
Yeah.
So instead of high prices for a short amount of time, we're looking at high prices for a longer amount of time, lower, but still high.
But still high. And for an indeterminate period of time, how long? At what point is it enough? At what point have you paid off what they consider it to be the difference?
Totally. Yeah, exactly. And then if you go back to original calculations and then go, okay, your mortgage is $1,500 a month and your heating is now $5,000 a month, or $4,000, or even $3,500 a month. And you only make $5,000 a month.
It's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable.
And your wages are not going up
No,
to offset that
God,
cost. No.
So it's really dire, and
Yes.
There's a lot of hope, I think, in town in terms of and activity in terms of trying to be advocates, but I gotta say the territorial response is nothing but doom and gloom from our perspective.
Yeah, if we even want to call it a response, I suppose we could.
Well, we got some food bank stuff.
That incredibly generous donation to the food bank, which, I'm not gonna.
Is it not a little let them eat cake?
It's very offensive. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I think it's absurd to say to a government worker that, let's be real, government workers, as a former government worker, we make okay money. Like it's not the worst pay in the world.
Well, it's
but to
good
say to them,
if the cost of living is reasonable,
yes,
and you have another person in the house.
Absolutely, you've got to be a dual income. I don't know how single income. I don't get it.
It's rough.
So hard. It's so hard. But to turn around and say, "Oh, well, just go to the food bank." Well, the food bank isn't paying my bills.
Well, but the other thing about that is the food bank. I think a lot of people look at it as like, if you don't need to go to the food bank,
right,
you should leave it for people who really need to go to it.
Yes.
So then, especially if you make good money, even though you all of a sudden you don't because of the cost of heating, you still don't want to go take food from other people who are in a worse situation than you.
Exactly. And that is, it's incredibly difficult. And also considering the fact that food here is already not cheap.
No.
We were at North Mart the other day, picking up some juice, shelf-stable juice, and a 1.2 liter bottle of cranberry juice was $33.
Yeah, it's outrageous.
Which, the prices aren't.
Well, you don't need cranberry juice. You don't need cranberry juice.
You don't need cranberry juice. But that's a crazy amount for juice.
Yeah.
And we're not talking like, it's not junk food.
No.
Juice is not a junk food option. No. Right? And you need food to survive. And so saying, okay, we'll give you $150,000 donation to your food bank. Great. Thank you. But that $150,000 is not going to go far.
No.
That's not a lot of food.
No. Well, like what? You divide $150K between 60 residents, 600 residents. Say everyone's going to the food bank. What is that? I can't even do the math right now. It's like a tiny amount of money. It's like $6.
It's
like $9 per person.
Well, I'm not getting juice.
Even if it's 90. You know what? My math is extremely embarrassing.
Yeah, no, I don't even want to admit that I ever worked in finance, but yeah,
it's definitely not more per person than they would pay for a month of fuel.
No, absolutely not. No.
Yeah. Anyways, so what do you think? Are you optimistic about this?
As optimistic as I can be.
Yeah.
I am confident that our message will get heard.
Yeah.
I'm confident that it will get heard at a federal level.
Yeah, that's good.
Absolutely. The NTFL will be lobbying at the end of the month in Ottawa.
Awesome.
And this will be one of the key issues that we bring with us to discuss. It will get heard. The solution, I don't think is going to come tonight. I don't think it's going to come tomorrow.
No. But like, as beautiful and amazing as that would be, we need to be realistic.
Absolutely.
It's going to be a difficult time until something happens, but it doesn't seem reasonable for something to not happen.
Right. Yeah. And I think that collectively our voices are stronger than individually. And I think that this has really brought the community together in a really positive way to voice for change.
Yeah. So how'd you get involved with the NTFL? Way back when? I don't know how long you've been working.
Back when. So I've been the president for a year and a half.
Okay.
And before that, I was a regional vice president covering Samba-Cape-Lecho, which is basically the Yellowknife-Petchco area.
Okay, nice. And do you enjoy the work?
Love it. I absolutely love it.
Tell me about, like, I don't know, from your, when you started working in the professional realm, kind of leading to this position. A lot of people, like, one of the things I like to do with this podcast is to be like, these are pathways that, like, a lot of people go, oh, those positions are unattainable or whatever. They just seem far off.
This is absolutely an attainable position for, I mean, this was not, I didn't go to school for this. This was not ever on my radar as something I thought I would do.
But the point being is, it's like, if you can highlight how you can get into a livelihood, people go, oh, well, maybe I don't need to go to school, or maybe I need to go to school for this, like whatever it might be.
For sure.
You know what I mean? So yeah, tell me the story.
So I got involved in the Union Northern Workers. I lived in Inuvik at the time, and I had an issue at work that I needed help with. I needed to file a grievance. And
how old were you at this time?
Oh.
Or how long ago?
This was probably 10 years ago now.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, probably about 10 years ago. And the union was able to help me resolve my issue, which was fantastic. And I kind of thought at that time, well, I should probably help and give back and get involved, at least at the local level. So I signed up to do a couple of courses. I took Talking Union Basics, the TUB course. I learned how to be a shop steward and did that for a little while. And then from there became the local secretary. Mm-hmm. Then I became the local president.
And was it your experience that just as you got more involved, these opportunities came to pass?
Much like anything in a small community, everything's volunteer. Right?
Sure. Okay.
So
these weren't paid positions yet?
Absolutely not.
I see.
Nope. Not paid positions at all. This is all volunteer work. It's a lot of volunteer work. It's a lot of work. But it felt like something that I needed to do. I kind of like being in a role where I can help people, and I wasn't doing that in the job that I had at the time.
Yeah.
It was a very individual side, like kind of a siloed position. So this was a good way for me to interact with more people in the community and to feel like I was doing something worthwhile and helping. I like the idea.
It was meaningful.
Yeah. Like it felt like I was doing something positive on a day-to-day. Whether or not we ever got resolutions to things, it felt like getting the employer and the employee on the same page was always
that's
win.
Important.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, especially in small towns, it's hard because everybody knows everybody, right?
Yeah.
So you see your boss at the grocery store, you see your boss at the Legion.
Yeah.
Your kids play together.
Yeah,
It's not as contentious as it is in a larger setting. Then we moved from Inuvik to Yellowknife, and because I didn't have the community that I had in Inuvik, I kind of stepped back a bit from the UNW. It's
was this just while you were setting your life up in Yellowknife kind of thing?
Sort of, yeah. It wasn't.
Well, transition begets investment on your behalf, which takes time away from the things you were doing.
Absolutely. And it was trying to navigate a new place and just a different part in our life where we weren't. I mean, it was a brand new community. Like
totally.
We lived in Inuvik for almost a decade. So moving from that to, again, to the big city. Like we're from just outside Toronto.
The booming metropolis.
Well, when you, we're from just outside Toronto. So it's quite busy. To move to Inuvik was a massive shift.
This is my experience too.
Yeah. But then you get used to it. And
then you can't think possibly of ever going back.
Right. And Yellowknife, even now, it still is the big city.
Totally.
There's a Walmart. It's a big city.
Oh, yeah.
And so it felt a lot more big city-ish. And I wanted to get involved, but I didn't really know anybody from the locals there. And I kind of just sat back a little bit.
A bigger place can also be way more intimidating to get involved in.
A little bit. I mean, ultimately the people in charge of the UNW is the same people. So like, you know them, but at a local level, I didn't really know.
But also just psychologically, like there's more people. Like, why am I qualified? Like these
100%. Imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome. Like, why would anybody want to listen to what I have to say?
Yeah.
How are my experiences relevant?
I think a lot of young people feel that way. And what I think is a true statement is like, they don't realize how starved people are for engagement.
Yes. Absolutely.
So like if you can commit and be reliable, oh man, are there opportunities that are going to come your way?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a friend of mine that had really actually introduced me to the world of unions in the first place was on the NTFL at the time and had said, hey, we've got a position open in your area. Would you be interested? And I said, well, I don't really know what the NTFL does. Like... I mean, maybe.
What does that stand for? Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what do we do? Because if we're not doing grievances and collective bargaining and talking to, like, I don't really know what we're doing.
Yeah.
And once he kind of explained it all, I was like, I think I could be into that. We've always followed politics. We've always been very involved and at home, especially like very spirited debates. And so I sent my email in and to the president at the time and said, hey, if you're looking to fill this position, I would be interested in jumping on. And
They were like, thank God somebody applied.
basically, yep, absolutely. Yep, for sure. We'll take you right away. And then maybe about 6 or 7 months later, she got another opportunity and resigned. And my friend Avery stepped in. He was our executive administrator for about a year and a half.
Yeah.
We had our triennial convention, and he said, why don't you run for president? I asked
What a
him,
statement.
yeah, I was like, I said, did you mean to ask me? Because this,
yeah, is there anybody?
like, because my husband was also very involved in the union when we were in Inuvik. And I said, you went to ask John, right? You wanted me to ask John? And he was like, no, I'm asking you.
Yeah.
I think you should step up. And I really thought about it for a bit, and I wasn't super happy at work and thought this could be a good change. And this is a paid position.
What were some of your, I like to call them like I like to use the word coyotes for the voices in your head that are the voices of self-doubt and cynicism. So what were your coyotes telling you at the time?
You can't do this. You don't know anyone. What could you possibly know about advocating for anybody? How could you think you could do this on a federal level? Like, these are real places. Like, real places. Toronto's a real place.
Yeah.
Ottawa's a real place. We kind of live in the land of make-believe, which is amazing. And I love it. I love our northern bubble because I feel so secluded. And I love that the whole territory is basically a small town. Like,
yeah.
You know someone in every community. It's fantastic. And I just felt like this kind of like the country mouse going to the big city,
Sure.
right? I'm not prepared to do that.
Yeah.
And after talking, it was really honestly my kids that were like, Mom, you can totally do this. Why would you think you couldn't do this? You should totally do this.
For kids too, they're not going to be like, wait, Mom can do anything. Like, what the hell? But seriously, like, that's probably what they were thinking.
They are very supportive, which is great. But I mean, they were older teenagers at the time. And for them to say, you should totally do this. Why would you think you couldn't? Put your name out there and see what happens.
That's
because
awesome.
there was no guarantee. It's an election.
That's a beautiful moment of reciprocity. That's very cool.
They're pretty fantastic. I'm pretty lucky.
That's awesome.
And so we went to the triennial convention. I had no idea if anybody else was going to run.
Totally.
Threw my name out. I was fortunate that I had support, and nobody ran against me. So it was a pretty easy win.
Did you ever watch The Office?
Yes.
There's that moment when Michael declares bankruptcy and
It was a lot like that. I declare presidency. Yeah. And we were in Iqaluit. It was the first time I'd ever been to Nunavut. And
oh, that's cool.
I left with a brand new job and essentially like a whole new life.
That's very cool. Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, I think that our democracy or whatever, even just our system needs people to get involved, and it's starved for people to get involved. And it's, I think so many young people, it's like intimidating. You know, you have coyotes. Oh, that's like a real thing that's going on.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what's happening, but the thing is, once you get involved and start paying attention, all of a sudden, if you're actually paying attention, all of a sudden you're not an expert, but you're just someone who's paying attention. Yeah. And you can have an opinion. You're allowed to have, like, that's the whole point, right?
Absolutely.
So I guess what I'm saying is if you're unsure of what to do, get involved, and you'll probably be surprised with the response.
1,000%. And
yeah, how useful would it be to you if someone like got involved with you in terms of your job and was like, hey, do you need like an assistant of some kind? Like, is there any funding for that, or could we figure something out? Like,
very useful. It would be very useful. We cover 2 territories, and that is geographically a vast amount.
Yeah,
and
no kidding.
We represent all workers. That's pretty much everybody.
All workers, not just government workers.
Correct. Yeah. All workers. Yeah. So we are.
So like me, I'm self-employed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, no, the federations represent all workers because human rights are workers' rights.
Yeah, that's true. Cool. All right, so tell me about where you grew up.
I am from Oshawa, Ontario, so
Mhm.
just about 45 minutes east of Toronto.
Yep.
And I lived there until I was 32.
And tell me about your family and kind of paint the picture of your life as a kid.
So I grew up in Oshawa, which is a GM town.
Mhm.
So I have always been around unions.
Yep.
So while I didn't have a union job when I worked there, when I lived there, I was always familiar with that.
Sure.
My father worked for Bell. One of my earliest memories is walking the picket line with him
Oh, yeah.
on one of our weekends. We standing out in front of the Holiday Inn on Bloor, walking back and forth
Yep.
and not really understanding what it meant, but we got Timbits and there was a cool fire
Hell
in
yeah.
the drum.
I
so
love protesting.
it was pretty awesome. And our teachers went on strike when I was in high school.
Yeah.
And I was out picketing with them.
Cool.
And I vividly remember that and thinking, how could anybody think that they aren't worth what they're asking for?
Sure.
And they're already doing so much work. And how are we asking them to do more for nothing? And that's not fair. And I think I've always had a pretty good sense of like right from wrong.
Yeah.
I had always a really vested interest in the NDP. Ed Broadbent is from Oshawa, so that was always a very proud thing for us to be able to say, kind of a nice little claim to fame outside of GM.
Mhm.
So it was getting into this ultimately isn't really a surprise for me that I ended up
Sure.
here.
Well,
But-
it's cool. I was just thinking about it in conscious of my own life, and like I've never been on, like my parents are self-employed; they're artists,
Mhm.
so it's like such a removed world.
For sure.
Yeah, and like when I was 9, we moved to Mexico, and like it's a whole other world down there.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I don't know. I was just reflecting on that as you were talking, being like, it's cool how much these experiences shape your life and kind of put you where you end up. But then it doesn't mean that you can't take like a sharp turn somewhere and
100%.
get involved. Like,
yeah. Like I never would have thought, like looking back on it now, it kind of all makes sense. And I can
Well, yeah,
see
in
the
hindsight,
pieces.
it's 2020. Yeah.
But I never would have thought that. Like I worked in retail for
Yeah.
a long time. I worked at the Bay for 10 years.
What was your father like? Tell me what his character and his values.
We don't have a relationship. My parents got divorced when I was quite young.
Okay.
My sister's deaf.
Okay.
And he had a really hard time with that. So it was easier to just not be part of the family.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
That's rough.
It's all right.
Yeah.
We had a mom. It was good.
Okay. Well, tell me about your mother.
My mom worked really hard to make sure that we had everything.
Thank God there weren't $5,000 a month heating bills, right?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. We, growing up, never knew how hard we had it. She always did a really good job of making sure that we never went without. We always lived in, it might not have been the nicest house, but we lived in a good neighborhood. We always got to go to a good school.
Sure.
We never knew how tight things were. We never knew that she went without a lot so that we could have things.
Yeah.
And I'm incredibly grateful for that.
Parents are cool.
They can be.
Yeah, they can be.
They can be.
For sure.
Yeah.
The parents who care are very cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It's when I became a parent, it's like this kind of thing where you're like, oh, it's not about me anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like it's hard, like you can't convey that. Even like the words that I just said make perfect sense, but to someone who's not a parent, you don't fully understand it until it happens.
Yep.
And I think it's one of the coolest things. And I think everyone who would be an amazing parent should be a parent.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's very cool. And you had siblings?
I have a sister, my younger sister. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And what's the age separation?
3 years.
3 years.
She's 3 years younger.
I have a brother 8 years younger than me.
That's a big gap.
Yeah, I know. It's so strange. Like I didn't think it was weird growing up until we started having kids, and I was like, you know, wait 8 years before we have another one. It's crazy to me.
No, my kids are super tight in age,
Yeah.
so I get that.
That's awesome. So then, when did you leave Ontario and come up to Nunavik? What was that transition like?
So
Because there's always from someone who's not from the north, there's always a moment when you're like, maybe we'll go there.
Yep, and that was kind of what happened. I was a stay-at-home mom.
Okay.
We had 2 small children. My husband was a police officer.
Okay.
For Durham Region, and as a single income family in Ontario, it was not sustainable.
Yeah.
Much like a $5,000 heating bill is not sustainable.
Yeah.
And
there's a theme here.
Yeah, a little bit. And we knew some people. We had some friends that had moved to Inuvik years before. She was a teacher and had a good opportunity to go up and teach, and had been living there for probably 5 years at the time.
Okay.
And had kept saying, "You guys, why don't you think about moving up north?" And I'm like, "I'm not going to move up north.
Like, that's so
that's
far.
crazy. It's so far away. What am I even going to do up there?" because I couldn't get a job in Ontario. I couldn't get anything that would pay enough to offset the cost of childcare.
Yes, this is an endemic problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we scraped and struggled, and it was awful. Like, you're constantly robbing Peter to pay Paul because like trying to balance. And it's not that my husband didn't make good money. Like, as a first class officer, he made decent money, but for a family of 4, it wasn't enough. And we really sat down and hammered it out and said, okay, well, what would it look like if you retired, we sold our house, and we moved? And so that's what we did. He retired, we sold our house, we packed everything that we could, and we moved ourselves to Inuvik with no place to live and no jobs.
Whoa, that's crazy.
Yep. And 2 small children. They were 7 and 8 at the time. And
hey, I actually think that's a really good time to uproot your kids.
It was a perfect time to uproot the kids. And we moved up. We stayed with our friends for a couple of weeks until we had a place.
None of it's crazy except for going there with no jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But we got jobs right away. We got there at the end of July, and we were both working the first week of September.
But it's the kind of thing where it's like, you might intellectually know that you'll get jobs right away, but like, still, that's a huge move on a whim.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
100%.
Our story is similar, except we were like, we'll wait till we have one job at least, and then we'll go. But we were living in Gatineau in my grandmother's basement, and Leanna was pregnant, and we were going, this is not a life that we can give to our daughter.
Yep.
So we came up here.
Yeah. We wanted more for our kids.
Yeah.
And we knew that living up there, they would be close with our friends who we considered family.
Sure.
My husband's sister and her husband had moved up.
Okay.
Maybe 6 months before
so
we did.
You had family there.
By the time we moved up, we did have family there.
Very cool.
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
my sister-in-law and brother-in-law were there. So we knew we had friends there, and we had a little bit of family. So we figured, if we're not going to do it now, we're never going to do it.
I can relate to your kids' experience. I moved to Mexico when I was 9, and I had no idea what Mexico was. But like, what was their experience like? Were you like, okay, we're leaving? And
they were crushed at first. They were very, very, very close with my mom, so they were very, very upset.
Yes, that's hard.
But when we got there and they got to see what it was like, and like we drove across the country in a.
Did you go all the way around?
No, we drove. We drove through Canada, but we drove in a Ford Edge with our 2 Newfoundland dogs at the time in the back, and my mom flew the kids to Whitehorse and met us there, and then we drove the rest of the way up, the 4 of us, and the dogs crammed in the back.
Smart.
So it was, it really definitely as a family brought us very close. Like, not that we weren't already because the kids were small.
No, but it's different. It's different.
Yeah, but it was really neat to be able to be like, okay, this is what our family is now. We rely on each other. This is how things are.
It's a formative experience outside of the day-to-day where the kids need to step up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the year we moved to Inuvik was the year that East 3 opened, which was the brand new school.
Oh,
so
cool.
They got to start a brand new life at a brand new school where it was brand new to everybody.
That's cool.
So it wasn't super hard
that's
for them
very
that
helpful.
way.
Yeah.
And because they were in French immersion and they were split classes, they were actually in the same class.
Mm.
So they got to stay together, which
that's
I think helped a lot.
Yeah.
And they got all kinds of opportunities living there.
My brother was 1 when we moved, so he was no help to me.
Yeah, that's nice. But they got tons of opportunities they never would have had otherwise.
Yeah.
Like you travel for sports.
Totally.
They wouldn't have done that. Like, our son was 10 the first time he flew by himself to Yellowknife to go play hockey.
That's very cool.
That's crazy.
That's huge.
I hadn't been on a plane. Like,
yeah.
It was pretty neat.
Wow, that's amazing. That's so cool. Yeah. I love to hear the stories of how people, decide to do things in their lives, and it's I think it's so beautiful.
Yeah, and now we'll just be Northerners forever.
So then you were,
love it.
Yeah, you were in Nuvik for 10 years.
About 10 years, yeah.
And so your kids were like teenagers, but they were. What are they now? What are they doing?
Our son graduated. Both of my kids graduated a year early.
Okay.
We are one of the few COVID success stories where they used that time to take more classes.
Mm.
I think partially because we were all crammed in the house and they needed something to do that wasn't listening to either of us talk. I don't know that we'll ever forget.
Well, no. Yeah. I just hadn't put it into the context of your kids being in school up there.
Yeah. So our son graduated high school a year early and then took a year off. So the year that we moved, he had we moved in September. He graduated that May. So he had just finished. And when we moved to Yellowknife, our daughter had 1 year of school left, and then she graduated a year early as well.
Yeah, and when you go to different school for the last year, it's like, oh, whatever. Like, it's rough.
She didn't love it.
No, well,
but
who loves restarting 1 year? But it's only a year.
It was only a year,
yeah.
and they're both very smart. So she just kind of powered through and was like, "That's fine. I'm just gonna hammer through school and be done with it and move on with my life."
Yeah, and do they live with you guys now, or?
When school is not in session, yes.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Our son is in Ontario, in St. Catharines at Brock University.
And you left Nunavut how long ago, just for context?
About 3 years.
Okay.
A little over 3 years now.
Yeah. So they're still in that transition period of like starting their lives, but not being like fully established.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you ask either of them, they'll tell you I'm from Nunavut. They don't say I'm from Yellowknife.
Yeah, I have like a real hard time with where I'm from for the same reasons. Like I'm from Toronto, but I like don't identify with that at all.
No, I don't either. and I don't want anyone to really know that.
Shh, I'll cut that out.
Yeah, just take that part out. Yeah, no, we always, the joke in Nunavut when you live there is once you've hit 10 years, you can say you're from there. So we always say we're from.
I usually say I'm from Mexico because it just like breaks people's brains a little bit.
It just sounds cool.
Well, yeah, and like I just don't look Mexican at all because I'm not. Yeah, awesome.
But yeah, so he's at Brock University studying sport management. He's in his 3rd year, so he's almost done. And our daughter is at UBC in Kelowna, and she is in a science program majoring in psychology, and then she's going to med school after that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's aiming high.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Okay, so what does the future look like for you? What are the next few years? I'm assuming in this position. What are your aspirations, or is it a reactive kind of thing?
It's partially reactive and partially things that I plan in advance for. So
was the fuel crisis planned in advance?
Oh, of course. I knew about this so long ago.
Yeah.
No, this 1,000%.
We were getting a little not busy.
Yeah, I just thought this seems like something I could do. No, we have been working really strongly on a Northern Healthcare Matters campaign. We ran one a year ago in collaboration with Yukon Federation of Labor because we face similar issues across the Arctic. This time it's just Northwest Territories and Nunavut with a really strong focus on recruitment and retention and improvement of services. This
is like recruiting nurses and things like that?
Recruiting nurses, recruiting physicians, recruiting allied health professionals instead of relying on contract.
Yes.
Which we would really prefer that we weren't doing.
You prefer to have them as employees kind of thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at it just in sense of like dollars and cents, it makes more sense to have long-term employees because we all have a dollar amount attached to us. Yeah. Whether we think of it that way or not, we do. Federal transfer payments, we all have a dollar that is attached to us. And the more of us that are here, the more money comes in.
Totally.
And that funds,
I see what you're saying.
That funds our services, right? So when we hire locums that come up from New Brunswick or Nova Scotia or Ontario or Alberta, or we're bringing in contract nurses that are only here for a short period of time, they're not bringing any of that funding with them. And they are taking every dollar that they make back home with them where they spend it elsewhere.
Yeah. So what are the barriers other than like integrating into the communities and things like that and like finding longevity? What are other barriers that you're noticing in terms of recruiting people?
Housing and childcare.
Yeah. Okay. Well, those are obvious. And cost of fuel.
Well, here, absolutely. Cost of fuel. I mean, cost of living is tricky anywhere. And a lot of people wanted to come up here for adventure, which I think brings a lot of people to the north. And it used to be the high wages. And it simply isn't that anymore because you can, as a health professional, you can basically make the same pay anywhere in the country. So you live close to home. And
is that the kind of thing where it's like the territory needs to step up its game to be able to attract those people? Like, do they just need to pay more, or like, is that not really an option?
100% it's an option. They definitely could be paying more. They could also treat their employees better, and that would keep the employees that they have.
This is a radical idea.
I know, it's crazy, right? Just treat your employees with some respect and a little bit of dignity. They might stay around.
None of that on this show.
They might stick around a little bit.
Yeah.
And that is a problem that is across both territories. It's as bad as it is here. It's worse in Nunavut. It's fixable.
Yeah, and this is the disconnect between, I find, like politicians saying, "Oh, we're going to increase these things," and then like the actual realities of doing so. It's like saying, I was listening to the assembly and they're like, "Oh, we're going to widen the winter road," and it's like, okay, I know that you're putting money towards that, but like, who is riding the like what, how wide, like what are all these details, you know what I mean? And as a citizen, it's like it can feel like it's just ear service, lip service.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I will be convinced that it's not unless I see some kind of action locally here. I don't know, like,
and that's very fair.
yeah. Damn, that's dark.
It's going to get better. It can get better. It will get better.
Yeah. All right. Well, you know what? I'm going to try and put this out today. So tell me about what we're doing tonight.
So we're having a community forum tonight at the Legion from 6 till, I'm going to say roughly 8 o'clock. Mm-hmm. It's not totally firm. Where we will have some speakers. We will have the mayor speaking. MLA Danny McNeely will be speaking. And there's an opportunity for residents as well to get up and tell their stories. In addition, we also have a little separate area set up for people that aren't comfortable standing up and speaking in front of everyone. Because I think not everybody wants to get up and tell their story in front of everybody. And not everybody likes speaking in front of people. Until I took this job, absolutely hated it.
So the separate area will be a little private booth where you can go and tell how this crisis is impacting you personally to the camera, and it will be used to advocate on your behalf.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Kind of think of it as a little bit of a Much Music Speakers Corner.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, just without Ed Sock. But yeah, a little bit of a Speakers Corner. And this is information that I can take with me when I go lobby at the end of the month.
Do you want to just...
Yeah. So in addition to using this information tonight and to push forward with our territorial government and with our federal government, we are also going to be putting these little testimonials on a website that can be accessed by anyone that we can share worldwide, essentially. Thanks, World Wide Web.
Hell yeah.
And we'll get that out there so that people, because I think it's typical when you're in the north, because again, we are very isolated. We are a very bubbled off little area.
Yeah.
We know our problems.
Yeah.
But getting the rest of the country to stand up and take notice is sometimes a little bit trickier. And this is a really fantastic way for us to push that message out and to make it accessible.
Yeah. I think it's going to be heatorEat.com, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. It's catchy.
I think it speaks for itself.
I think it does.
Cool. So hopefully there's a good turnout tonight, and hopefully we get lots of engagement. Like these kinds of issues, I think the big thing that we need to do is not lose steam. Right. Because you can get worn down by the bureaucracy.
Absolutely. And I've seen that. I've seen that with I do have a couple of very close friends here, and I'm watching them. I don't want to say break down, but it is beating them down on a daily basis. Here's the thing is, if you don't commit to pushing forward, the bureaucracy will roll over you and win. Absolutely, and we are not going to let that happen.
Yeah, and you know, inaction on the bureaucracy end is so easy to just do forever, and I don't know. It's a hard problem to overcome, but I think if we can't shut up.
And that's it, right? The more voices we have, the stronger we are. And the running joke that I've always had since I took this job, when people would ask me, well, what do you do? Mm-hmm. I talk. I like to talk. I am a chatty person just by nature. My mom would say that. I think every teacher I've ever had would say that.
Yeah.
Sara-Jayne talks too much, doesn't know when to shut up. And in this job, it's actually pretty useful.
Yeah.
So
for sure, you need to be able to talk.
I'm not going to stop. I am not a Monday to Friday 9 to 5 position. I work 24/7, 365 days a year. As long as there's an issue, I'm working. I'm on it. I will keep this going. I will not stop talking about this. I will not stop bringing awareness to this until it is fixed. Yeah. And past that, because this should not have happened in the first place.
Yeah. Well, obviously, like, this is a symptom of the problem, a pretty dire symptom. And, you know, people go, maybe don't address the symptoms, address the problems. Maybe if the symptom's going to kill you, you should address the symptom. Absolutely. And then address the problem.
Absolutely. And we hear a lot from our federal leaders saying, look, Arctic sovereignty, it's so important. The North is so important. Then do something about it.
We like a quiet North.
We like a quiet North. We would like to keep our quiet North the way that it is. But we need some help keeping it that way.
Yeah.
And so much like the lip service that we get from the territorial government, we get it from the feds too. Don't tell me how important we are. Show me.
Yeah. Actions speak louder than words. No kidding. Well, if you are watching this and you want to send a video testimonial in, say you can't attend tonight, or you'd just like to hold your phone up and talk into your phone, we will be receiving those, and we'll you can send it to me at josh@breakingiceproductions.com, and I can get them to the right inputs. And then what else? Yeah, you could also just write in as well.
Absolutely.
We can put that on the website
For sure.
And I had something else that I was going to ask you. Oh yeah, so we were talking about this might take a long time or whatnot. One of the ideas I had, and again, I kind of hate saying, oh, let's use a GoFundMe, but specifically for dividing costs between families who were caught in the gap. And I don't believe that there's going to be a satisfactory aid package that will help people who happened to have to pay the high prices in the interim.
Yeah.
There are going to be families who filled up just by chance. There are going to be families who heat off of wood, whatnot, that don't need this kind of help. But the families that, like the family, I don't have a specific family, but I'm sure this family exists, is the family that didn't have enough money to fill up after winter. So they thought they'd wait till fall.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know what the solution is. I know I had also heard about like the idea of floating around a GoFundMe. They can be tricky to run, especially when there's multiple people involved.
Well, no, but we could put it on the website. And I don't know, like this is an idea. Maybe we'll do it. Maybe we won't. Hopefully, I don't know. I hate to put one out there and have it just sit at $0.
Fair. I don't think that would be an issue. I do think that people would be willing to donate to the cause. I think that a lot of people across the territory, whether or not they have spoken out vocally about it or not, are aware of the problem and are very concerned. I think
maybe Wozniak will give us some money personally instead of from the government.
I mean, we could ask.
Yeah, she's
not coming today. She was invited, but she will not be in attendance.
Oh well, so. Yeah, it's.
But I mean, she did respond to the email invite that I sent, which is more than I
will be out of office and tell us.
I believe that there is a meeting today that she could not. She could not miss.
But I was not being.
It's more than I got from the Premier's office, which was crickets. So
nice, cool.
Yeah.
Well, any last, if people, let's have you kind of plug what you're doing, and if people want to help you, where can they find you? If they have an issue that you can help them with, where can they find you?
The best way to find me is email. It's easiest. It's president@ntfl.ca. It is attached to my phone, so as much as I would love to say I am good at separating, I am not, and I answer things immediately because that is a quirk. That's the quickest way to get me is to email me, and I will respond.
And what kind of issues? Like, say someone is sitting at home going, I don't know if this is really an issue that I should
ask.
I don't want to waste their time.
Nope.
Okay.
You're not ever wasting my time. Ask me. My phone at the office very seldom rings. It is almost always for employment standards.
Okay.
But I'll answer it.
Yeah.
And I will direct you in the way that I can. We don't work on individual issues. We work on, like I said before, like broader worker issues. But it might be something that I don't know about. It might be something that's affecting a large group of workers that I'm not aware of. Mm-hmm. And you're
one person.
I'm one person. I'm one person for two territories, but I am happy to listen. I'm happy to do what I can do to help. And I'm happy to redirect if that is the case. If it is a union issue, I will redirect you to your union. If it is a labor standards issue, I'll redirect you to the labor standards. If it's something I can help with, I will help you with it.
And do you have a need for people to get involved with what you're doing? Like on a professional level? On
a professional level, we have a vacancy in Nunavut. If anybody's listening from Nunavut and wants to jump in and lives in the Kavalak region, we're looking for an RVP there.
What's RVP?
Regional Vice President.
Okay.
So we have 6 regional vice presidents, 3 in the Northwest Territories and 3 in Nunavut. And that's where we're missing one there. So if anybody there wants to jump in, send me an email. Happy to have the help.
Well, I'd like to say on behalf of the community, thank you so much for coming. It means a lot to actually have you here. And like you were saying, having non-answers, crickets and things like that, doesn't feel like we're seen.
Yeah.
And even though there has been quote unquote aid, no one feels like there has been, because it is either behind barriers that only certain people can access, or social stigmas, and that and not even a social stigma, but just not wanting to use resources that others need so badly. Exactly. Even though we all kind of need it so badly.
And yeah, you're 100% right. And I think I don't want to tell anybody go to the food bank because that's what you should be doing, because I don't know that that's the answer.
No, but it's even shit to be like, hey, like you know what? I will make the winner. I will be going into debt, but I'd rather go into debt than go to the food bank so that someone who really needs the food bank can.
Who doesn't have the option to go into debt?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
for sure. But
So,
we will make sure that the community does not feel abandoned. Like, I hear you. I see you. I'm
Totally.
here. And I will take this with me and make sure that other people hear and see.
yeah. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show. It
Thank
means
you.
a lot. And I hope that you have success in your efforts. And, maybe you single-handedly can fix Northern Healthcare. And
I mean, I'm gonna try. We'll have to do a follow-up.
And yeah, you're welcome back on the show anytime.
Fantastic.
So, thanks for coming.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.